G'day everyone. For today's vlog, we are going to be going over the Nephilim. But before we do that, I'll give you a quick update on how things are going with Fragged. So, I'm starting to put together my Kickstarter page and getting my cover art done. So here are some sketches for the cover art of what we're going to go with. So once I've got some more, I'll show you that. But also, I'm putting together my Kickstarter page. Don't get too excited. This is just a preview. The numbers aren't set. I'm just sort of filling it out and getting a bit of a feel for it. So, just doing a little blurb and the front covers will go here and having an idea for some pledge levels and showing off my artwork and really focusing on the various species of Fragged, because in Fragged Empire 2nd edition I am not just doubling down, I'm like tripling down on the whole culture, the cultures and the take and the different species and their relationships to each other and with themselves. So really going heavy with that. And then so anyway, that's coming along well. I'm starting to explore marketing, talking to some content creators and trying to get a bit of a feel for that. I'm a bit nervous because I know that paying for that sort of stuff is really expensive. And from talking to other people, it's not like live streamers can be helpful, but they don't necessarily always give you a return on your investment. So I just want to be wise. Okay, I've got to be wise so I can run an efficient business to make sure that I'm putting the money into keeping things going and making the product better and not just into the sizzle of getting attention. So anyway, I'll figure that one out. I'll navigate it. I've got some time up my sleeve to work that one out, and I'll talk to some wise people. Cool. Okay, so let's jump into the Nephilim. So where does the name Nephilim come from? So the word Nephilim is actually from the Bible. It's one of those obscure little texts in Genesis where nothing's really fleshed out. The word sort of got people excited. So it just says, this is from Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So there's ideas that Nephilim is probably just means giants or big men. But then people get really excited by this word. So you've got ideas of Nephilim, that's a cool word, and there's ideas of sons of God, and maybe that's angels and demons, and having half children. It gets real weird anyway. But I don't dive into any of that sort of stuff of it. Mostly I chose the word Nephilim. One, I thought it was an interesting word, but also that name doesn't actually come from the Nephilim themselves. So that name was actually a designation given to them by the Archons. And the Archons tend to use this really sort of celestial type naming conventions, celestial, heavenly, divine type stuff. They really like that. So for the name, so for example, there's an Archon captain called Celestus, and they have names like that. Or Divinitus, and and I thought, well, Nephilim was this cool idea come from them, with this idea of these cursed giants or these cursed monsters. Anyway, but eventually the name got attached, and then it became the thing. So let's do a little rundown on them, and we'll just read the history and then go through their various subcultures. Cool. Okay. We know Weeds is more powerful than all the other species. Stronger, smarter, less inhabited by hollow ethics. But we needs what only they can give. Culture. We has no histories beyond war. And must learn civilization structures and economics if we is to survive. Jalzir's Civil Weaver. During the Exion's 200-year exile out in the dark of uncharted space beyond the Black Reach Nebula, it created a vast army billions of exquisitely engineered organisms that were created for the sole purpose of enacting its vengeance through the destruction of the Archons and their creations. These creatures would come to be known as the Nephilim, and were organized into massive broods that were led by an arch-genocrat general. Impossibly powerful and intelligent creatures who bowed to no one but the Exion itself. One such arch-genocrat was the Devway Ich, whose brood was tasked with the destruction of the Kaltorans. The Devway Ich's brood encircled the Kaltoran nation and corralled them towards their home system of Haven. The Kaltorans, along with some Archons, a large legion force, and a tiny spattering of other species, fought well. But they all crumbled before the numerical and creative superiority of the Nephilim and the Exion. For 25 years after the Great War and sudden departure of the Exion, the Devway Ich and its brood continued to fight against Mechanids and Legion insurgents as it hunted down the last vestiges of the Kaltoran people in the region. Without direction from the Exion creator during this long period, attrition wore away at the Nephilim, a dwindling army of monsters without purpose or resupply. The Nephilim succeeded in killing off all of the Kaltorans except for those that hid beneath the seas of the planet Kadash, and scattered what remained of the Legion fleet across the region. But the Mechanids were a relentless and cunning foe that threatened to defeat them. With each passing year they grew in number and technological ability, while the Nephilim declined in both. But the Devway Ich saw a thin path forward that could possibly result in its survival. Nephilim that were cut off from their command structure would devolve into a feral state, becoming little more than animalistic beasts or primitive tribes, but were also ignored by the Mechanids. The Devway Ich also noticed that Mechanids without prey would hibernate. Against the desires of many of its subordinate genocrats, the Devway Ich gathered together its remaining spacecraft and forces and landed, or crashed if ill-suited for atmospheric entry, onto the toxic world of Eden, the former capital planet of the Kaltorans. There the Devway Ich slumbered for almost 50 years, beneath a mountain of Nephilim spacecraft corpses, along with its remaining supplies and finest troops. The reasons why the Devway Ich chose that inhospitable world are not fully known. Two of its greatest genocrats, the mighty Megiddo and cunning Trojdaz, remained to fight against each other on the nearby jungle world of Mishpasha, while the insightful Fragged took a large force into the Halo Nebula, and the mysterious Kildrock travelled into Mondian space. While the Devway Ich slumbered, its Nephilim brood were without purpose and order, and they devolved into various feral Nephilim forms. With the eventual arrival of the corporation in the Haven system, the Devway Ich awoke. It forcefully took control of many of the greatest tribes and packs of feral Nephilim on Eden, and with renewed purpose and the formation of the city of Necronos, the brood was reborn. The Devway Ich publicly, though possibly inauthentically, cast off all ties to the Exion, who had abandoned them, and vowed for its Eden brood to make their own way and to set their purpose. In the corporation, the Devway Ich saw an opportunity for building a new society for its brood. It forged an alliance with these newcomers, knowing that the only way for its brood to survive the ages was to create a new culture for themselves that would take them beyond the purpose of their creation. To cement this alliance, the Devway Ich assisted the corporation in their resettlement into Haven, with the construction of a space station around the gas giant Alabaster. Over the coming years, the dedication of the Eden brood to this new path was intensely tested, as new species, many hostile to all Nephilim, such as the Kaltorans and Legion, emerged back into space, or settled in Haven. But while the Eden brood holds the power to once again destroy all of the other species, they know that they must be more than the monsters that they were created to be. The Eden brood's alliance with the corporation has proven to be incredibly fruitful. as the corp are dedicated to interspecies networking and spreading their cultural and economic influence. The Nephilim have also genetically engineered a new emissary strain to acclimatize the other species to their presence. A less monstrous-looking Nephilim with a more corp or Kaltoran-like appearance. But the brood still seeks to grow in power in all ways that it can, namely through scientific advancement and the reclamation of powerful feral Nephilim back into their brood. Okay, so this history is specifically talking about the Eden brood Nephilim, which is the brood that players will generally come from. Okay, so there's this idea that there's lots of other leftover broods all over the place, and I'll see if I can, how I go flicking to the right page. I think if I'd prepared, there we go. Okay, so see this little picture down here. This shows where the various broods came from. So this was the Black Reach Nebula here, and most of them came along here. This is the group that would have entered the Devoy Itches brood, is this one here. This is the one that killed the Ursai, and then you've got these other ones which aren't talked about at all, because I want GMs to come up with ideas. Who are these? And one such of these brood is also where the Oni brood came from. Yeah, and there's these other archgenocrats and different societies and cultures out there. Some of them probably died out after the Exion left. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into it. Let's have a quick look at some of the cross-section of some of the cultures. So this is an example genocrat. So these are the ones that rule the Nephilim. So the Nephilim are very much like might makes right society, but also they've got specifically genocrats who are they are engineered and created to be rulers. Okay, but they're created to be rulers for an army, not necessarily for a culture with an economy and in need of infrastructure and trade and politics and arts and all that sort of stuff. And so you've got different types of genocrats. So I'm just going to walk you through this little blurb here, just to give you an idea of the different types of genocrats we've got here. Okay. So the version I'm going to read is slightly different to this one because I've done some editing. But not all Nephilim rulers are genocrats, and not all who were born a genocrat are able to hold on to power. Archgenocrats were personally created by the Exion to rule one of its massive broods. Hierophants occupy the upper echelons of brood society and commonly rule a settlement or Necronus spire. Deacons are respected for their wisdom and skill, commonly oversee an important political, scientific, or technological station. Risencrat is a special designation given to non-genocrats who have gained authority through personal exceptionalism. Risencrats are widely respected and envied by lesser Nephilim, but viewed with suspicion by genocrats. Lesser crats are those who failed to live up to the expectations of their genocrat genes, and are commonly found as captains of a spacecraft, aides for lesser Nephilim rulers, or working with hunting teams to uplift the minds of feral Nephilim. Okay, so if you want to be a player and a genocrat, you totally can be. Think of it like an aristocracy, you know? So you're probably going to be a lesser crat if you were one of those. But yeah, okay, so that's the genocrats. I really like them, fleshing them out more. And this feral state thing. That's basically like Nephilim who don't have rulers or an authority structure above them, kind of have this hard wiring in them that they basically turn into animals. And this is an idea from a world building perspective. This means that Nephilim can be roaming monsters. Okay? So all the real nasty monsters out there in the various worlds can be just leftovers from the war. They can look like anything and they can be like anything, but it also means that they are technologically advanced and can be a threat to PCs who are going around with modern shields and armor and guns and spaceship and stuff. You can still get feral Nephilim that are just as technologically competent or even more so. And there's this little thing, a little thread, is that it's possible that the arch-genocrats also slowly turn into a feral state. So during the war, they were under the Exion, so they had that superior to sort of keep them elevated. But then without the Exion, are they too prone to slowly devolving back into a bestial state? Did the Devway itch put itself on ice for so long just to hold off the inevitability of that? And if it may not even be an issue, okay? And if it's not, then they're fine. But if they are, then that means the whole Nephilim as a species is on a ticker. But if anyone was able to alter their own genes to fix this or create new strains, that would be the Nephilim. Okay, then we're going to go into some specific strains here. So this is gargantuans. These are big, massive brutes, foot soldiers, who often have high regenerative abilities. And so this is your idea of this is the idea of a standard Nephilim soldier. This is what they look like. Yes, I really like designing their head tentacles and what they actually are as an organ. So in first edition, we just had some story fluff, sort of teased what they were, but I actually spell it out in second edition. Then there's the Tenebrous. So there's a new character that's coming with the stories of Fragged. You know, stories with Rachel Swagger and Theo and Max and Hrax. There's now going to be another Nephilim. This one more of a crazy body. So there's a Tenebrous will be joining that party. And this is just to add to the idea that the Nephilim can be really weird. So, yep, that's the Tenebrous. Then we have Sentient Munition. So this is actually covering a range of different Nephilim species. And the idea is that a lot of Nephilim are shooting other Nephilim, you know, sentient torpedoes or bombs that can think and move and chase after things and explode. But then what happens if those things were around long enough and awake for long enough that they actually start to gain sentience? Because these are quite clever, okay? Because they want these things to be clever so they can find their targets. But, you know, they wake up with pre-programming in their head. Hunt, latch on, explode. But then slowly they can sort of be around for a bit more and they become more than that. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this section here. You get some really weird Nephilim. Then, of course, you've got the Emissary. So this is a particular strain that is unique to the Eden Brood. And so these guys and girls, are born fully grown with a head full of fake memories, and they're told just go out there and acclimatize the other species to the Nephilim's existence. So they don't look like monsters, so they don't scare the other ones or seem like a threat, but they're still obviously Nephilim. And this is the typical player character if you want to be an emissary, if you want to be a Nephilim but not a monster. And this here is a Vivo, which is a new arcane power type. You know, goes along with psionics and anti-grav stuff and all power and things. So that'll get fleshed out more in the rules there too. And yeah, and then you got some attachment. This is the Ioni here, and then the Toladal who come from the Ioni. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a quick lightning look at the Nephilim. They are if you want to be a freaky monster and look and be weird, like real biologically weird, this is you. So incredibly physically diverse, but from a world building perspective, they all share a culture, and so it means I can write about them in still one section, but then having, you know, infinite possibilities of what they could be in your campaign or for your player character. Cool. Take care, everyone. I hope you have a great